fueling a global race for data center dominance, reshaping real estate, energy grids, and entire economies along the way. For our next session, we'll hear from leaders on the front lines of the modern gold rush on what it takes to build the infrastructure that powers everything AI promises. Please welcome YTL Data Center CEO, Wai Moon Heng, Firmus as SMC Cloud co-founder and CEO, Tim Rosenfield, Princeton Digital Group Chairman, CEO, and co-founder, Rangu Salgame, and Fortune's Clay Chandler.
Thank you, Aisha. Gentlemen, please have a seat and welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I've been looking forward to this panel for some time. This is what I call a power panel, and it's not just because the subject is about power, but this is a bunch of a collection of people who have got very powerful authority and experience when it comes to the subject of data centers, which is a fascinating one. I thought maybe we would start by just having each of you say 2 or 3 lines about your organization and what you do, because even though all 3 of you you do data centers, you have very different business models and you do them in different ways. So I want to understand how you are same, but different. So maybe, Rangu, let's start with you.
Sure, thank you. I lead a company called Princeton Digital Group. We are a Pan-Asia data center company headquartered here in Singapore. We build and operate data centers for hyperscalers, what we call as hyperscalers in the industry. These are large tech companies which offer cloud and AI services in the market. So that's our business model. We build and operate data centers for these hyperscalers. We're in 6 countries, and we are privately held. We are backed by some of the large private equity investors, Warburg Pincus, Ontario Teachers Pension Plan, Mubadala, and most recently Stonepeak. So privately held, Singapore headquartered, hyperscale-focused, large-scale data centers, focused on AI and cloud both.
It's great. I should say that Rangu has been kind enough to invite me to visit PDG data centers both in Johor and Sendanek Park, which is really amazing. And then just a couple of months ago, I was up in Tokyo to see the opening of his new data center in Saitama, which was just fascinating. Really amazing stuff. Tim?
So hello all, I'm Tim Rosenfield. I'm co-founder and co-CEO of Firmus Technologies. We are I'd call us an AI factory builder and operator. So we think along the lines of a data center, but specifically for building and optimizing infrastructure to produce AI tokens. For me, life started in Australia. This is where I'm from. We started innovating around liquid cooling platforms. Based up here in Singapore now with ST Telemedia as a cornerstone investor, privately held company, and now we're scaling out our AI factory platform across Asia Pacific.
So Tim has also invited me to visit here in Singapore one of the factories that he's fitted out with liquid immersive cooling technology, which is also really amazing and cool. And Walang, I haven't yet had the chance to visit a YTL data center, but I hope I get a chance in the future. Tell us a little bit about YTL and your model.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Waiman. I'm the CEO of YTL Data Centers. We run data centers in Singapore and in Malaysia, and we have a campus in Johor, in Kulai. So those that are familiar with the area will know that there's a lot of good food and palm trees there. But if you go further into Kulai, you'll see this giant area with a lot of buildings coming up. And that is where we have our massive data center park. It's about 600 megawatts total. So that's where I'm going to invite you to visit very, very soon.
I would look forward to that. That's wonderful. So I should say YTL is the biggest data center operator in Malaysia, is that correct? And pretty much end to end in terms of everything from power to the building and the maintenance of the facility. So what I hope you get from those kind of quick snapshots is that data centers are actually way more complicated. I think that for those of us I'm just curious, how many people in this room have actually been to see a data center? not as many as I would have guessed. I would really urge you to do it because these things are massive. And what I'm learning as I visit them is that there are many different kinds of data centers. And the equipment in these data centers is also very different. And the energy that supplies the data centers are very different. And the type of AI that runs using that power in these different data centers is also very, very different. And it's shifting and it's evolving all the time. And so from the outside, they may look like just a big black box. But they're underneath the roof, a lot more complicated things going on in there. And I hope for just kind of general people. Now, I know all of you are used to going to speaking before audiences that are very sophisticated about data centers, but we kind of have a general business audience at Fortune, and I'm a technological ignoramus about this kind of stuff. So I'm going to ask a very simple question just to open up with here, which is about how we think about the capacity of these things and how much power they consume. So help me think about what's an easy way to explain what a gigawatt is? How many people in the audience can explain quickly easily what a gigawatt is? No takers at all? We got microphones here.
In a Singapore context, I think if I'm not mistaken, an HDB runs on like 1.1 kilowatts or 1.2 kilowatts. So a gigawatt is 1,000 megawatts. A megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts. So I guess that gives.
So it's a billion, right?
Yeah.
So just I'm kind of an idiot, so I've kind of come up with this layman's way of thinking about how much power this stuff is. So when we talk about capacity of data centers, we measure it not in terms of, usually we're talking about how much data they can draw at any one particular moment. So we're not talking about how much energy they use over the course of a year. It's in that kind of flash moment that they need capacity. How much is that capacity? So if you think about it in simple terms, we're not talking about, it's like a hose. It's not how much water is moving through the hose. It's how fat the hose is and how much water can move through the hose at any one time. And again, if I'm oversimplifying, you guys please correct me, but if you think of a single gigawatt, that is kind of the power that is required by a city of 750,000 to 1 million people. Is that about, it depends, right? It depends. But if you think about in the developed economy, San Francisco is 1 million people, that's about a gigawatt city. Vancouver is a gigawatt city, right? Brisbane is a gigawatt city, more take. Now, there are exceptions to that. Singapore is a 6 million population, but probably consumes 1.3 gigawatt because they're very energy intensive here. Johor Bahru across the Straits, you'll know this better than I, is about 1 million people, but it's a half a gigawatt city, give or take. So the reason I'm kind of tossing some of these numbers out is that when you think about the size and how much energy these data centers consume, you very quickly realize how enormous it is. So if I were to ask you, Rangu, you've got, 20 data centers, is that right, in 6 different countries?
That's right.
What's the total gigawatt capacity of those 20?
Our portfolio comprises about just over a gigawatt, 1.1 gigawatt in a portfolio. But more importantly, to your point, Clay, the recent development the scale has gone up dramatically.
Yeah.
Just 3 years ago, 4 years ago, we used to build 20, 30 megawatt data centers.
Yeah.
Now the one in Johor that you visited is a 170 megawatt campus.
Amazing.
The one in Tokyo is 100 megawatts. So the scale has gone to triple digit megawatts.
Yeah.
And that's what we are seeing now. It's going to multiply further. If you look ahead over the next 2-3 years, we're talking about 300, 400 megawatt data center campuses right in this region that will serve AI. So that's kind of the scale that we have seen go dramatically in the recent past.
Yeah.
So just in Asia, to give you context to the scale that you're referring to, Clay, the expected growth of data center capacity in the next 5 years is going to be about 11 gigawatts across all of Asia.
Right.
That's a lot. 11 gigawatts that needs to go into production over the next 11 years, next 5 years for data centers. That's kind of the scale that's coming, much more than what we have seen in the last 5, 10, 20 years.
Yeah, amazing. So Waiman, tell us a little bit about YTL's operations in Malaysia. You've got a data center in Singapore that's about 100, is that right, megawatts?
No, our Singapore site is relatively small.
So,
Yeah, so I think, for us, it's because those that live here knows that there's a moratorium in Singapore.
Right, right.
So essentially, you are restricted to what you can do here,
Right.
and hence everything has moved up north, essentially.
So what's in Malaysia? What kind of gigawatt capacity are we talking data centers in Malaysia?
Yeah, so our campus is, one campus is 600 megawatts. And then each building that we are constructing within the campus is roughly about 100. So we're doing data center by data center, right? But I think to Rangu's point, right, we used to be rather long in the tooth. So we used to build data centers that is not even 20 megawatts. The first DC I remember is a 1 megawatt I did in Tai Seng in Singapore.
Yeah.
So, and that was considered one of the largest data centers in Singapore then, right? So things are, I mean, essentially the growth is exponential.
Yeah.
And hence, when you talk about power, right, I think if you look at the growth, exponential growth for the power, that is really quite astounding to us in this industry, actually.
And you're building an on-site solar facility for the park in Johor, which is a 500 megawatt capacity.
Yeah. So I think obviously, we can't do that here in Singapore, right? I mean, probably the economics would probably kill us immediately. But in Kulai, because we have the flexibility of acquiring a huge plot of land, and we are able to actually build a solar farm on site that will give a peak capacity that's able to power what we generate ourselves. So that is quite important for us, right? I mean, not only because of commercially, but also in terms of the sustainability part that our clients actually ask for.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important for us to push that agenda as well in Malaysia. Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, it kind of just blows my mind, right? So you're creating a solar farm that's essentially going to generate as much power as the entire city of Johor Bahru draws down, right? Which is extraordinary. And Tim, you're able to go into data centers and drastically reduce the amount of both energy and carbon that they emit. Yeah. Talk to us a little bit about your model and how you do it and the modules that you build and your kind of approach to engineering.
So our approach, Clay, was bottom-up analysis of the energy stack of what we now call an AI factory, but AI infrastructure. So our foundations 7 years ago were to look at a data center like a factory and say you've got energy coming in, you've got something that processes that energy. Right. You've got, at the time, cloud billable hours. Maybe it's Microsoft Office or something like that coming out. You now have this new paradigm that you have energy coming in, you have AI tokens coming out, and in the middle you have the AI factory. Right. And our thesis was, could we materially cut the energy used or required to produce that GPU hour or that AI token? So we look at it from it's inescapable. AI is going to consume more power because people want to build more AI, and that's something I think we all can agree on. Our optimization is like a system integrator saying how fewer watts or how fewer joules can we produce that AI token output. And for those that aren't aware, there's some fantastic research you can actually probably do through like ChatGPT or some of these tools. But a token is a universal language of AI. So whether you're using ChatGPT or whether you're using, DeepSeek or any other model, an AI consumes and produces tokens. So we think about it like a system integration piece. Produces many tokens for as little amount of energy as possible.
Okay, so Rangu, I want to come to you next, but before I do that, I want to ask, again, just kind of testing the data center savvy of our audience here. Who knows what the largest data center corridor in the world is, where it is? It's a pretty easy question. Yeah, somebody knows. In the back, you want to stand it? We've got mics running around. Can you tell us? West Virginia? Northern Virginia, yes. Ashburn, Northern Virginia. Okay, so here's the hard bonus question, though. Why is it the largest corridor? Can you hazard a guess?
I'm guessing it's just because of power resources in that region, and also government was there, and there's a lot of need for data centers there.
Correct. Yes. Good. So, Rangu, you and I have had this conversation about latency and under the old-fashioned data center model, where you needed to be close to the customer. If you were doing streaming media, you were doing e-commerce, you were doing financial services, something like that. Every nanosecond counts in terms of the speed of that transaction. So there was an incentive to have the data center close to the customer, and that's how Northern Virginia got to be Northern Virginia. But when I went to visit you in Malaysia, you kind of revealed to me that actually, there are different kinds of AI, and there are some kinds of AI that don't have to be close to the customer and can live in Malaysia, where other things are more important. You want to say a little bit about that?
Sure, Clay. As we have heard some of the terminologies in the general press, large language models is one side of AI,
right,
or foundation models, and the other side is inferencing, which is the applications and services that drive the use of AI use cases.
Right.
The large language models that emerged over the last 2-3 years, these are large scale. Think about these are mega computers, and these are where the learning engines work, and they are not transmitting data for end user. So
Right.
that can afford to stay a little away from the end user, and that's where regions like Johor became very attractive, where you're not necessarily in Singapore to serve the local customer, but you have enough power and land and still proximity enough, close enough that you can tap into the submarine cable network to go into the global internet. And so Johor became very attractive. So that's where some of the large-scale back-end models could work in regions like Johor. And while inferencing, which is still in the early stages, and we're going to see now the growth of inferencing, which is applications and services like Microsoft Copilot and other services, search engines that are going to use AI more and more. Those things are going to start driving latency requirements. So if you and I are using ChatGPT or other services sitting here in Singapore, you want that to be very close, very fast, and that's where the smaller capacity for inferencing would be required closer to the end user. But the large scale, like AI factories, as Tim was mentioning earlier, these are large AI factories that's going to be driving the language models, foundation models.
Super interesting. So in other words, if you're just training an AI, the data can come from anywhere
In the world.
thousands of miles away. You upload it into this data center where the servers run. It can, Malaysia has things that are more important than geographical proximity. If you're training a data center, it has cheap land, it has ample power, it has enough water, and you can just let it run. And it can be used thousands of miles again, removed from where the data center is. But so inference is a very interesting question. Are you saying that the pendulum is starting to swing back again to where geography matters?
Yes. I think that will, as the use cases have to come out now and be able to monetize some of the language models, a lot of investments have gone in, and that services are going to start coming out. We're already seeing some early indicators of that, and the realization and return on investment, some of these things are going to become important now, and we're seeing some early traction on that. Just to give an indicator about we talked about power from a gigawatt perspective, but from a cost perspective, these are massive investments, as we have talked before. One 100 megawatt data center costs about $1 billion just to build without power cost. Just the building and the power equipment that goes in costs about $1 billion for 100 megawatt on average. So those are the kind of investments going in. On top of that, you put another $3 billion of equipment that goes inside, the servers, the chips. So 100 megawatt data center that you would visit as in Saitama, Tokyo, Hari, and Johor, has probably $4 billion of cost that goes in, CapEx. And that is where now we are going to see the realization of that value are going to come through services which are inferencing and other kind of AI applications that are going to start coming out.
But so this gives you an idea of the scale, the just massive scale that we're talking about. I mean, Rangu is running this business where he has giant institutional backers like Warburg Pincus and the Ontario Teachers Fund, Mubadala, am I saying that right? And they're putting up billions of dollars of capital. And Rangu is investing it over decades, right? And so you've got to make these bets over decades with tons of money. So you've got to get it right, and you've got to be able to read trends in what's really still a very rapidly shifting, changing.
Just looking at the 11 gigawatts that we expect in Asia, in this part of the world, from Japan to India to Australia, that requires over $100 billion of investment needs to come in the next 5 years just to build those data centers. So it's a massive capital-intensive industry, and there is enough capital in the world that is focused on this sector now. And a lot of that capital is coming here to Asia.
Tim, how do you see this question of inference and geography coming into play, the pendulum swinging back? Because I've seen so many different studies that are all over the place on this. Some have asserted that 70% of power data center capacity is going to still be devoted to these very hungry, energy-hungry AI models. But people are talking more and more about agentic and inference and the need to keep the speeds down again.
Yeah.
Coming from Australia, this is very relevant as well, right?
It is, I guess. Look,
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's I think doubling down on what we were just talking about around geographics and regions, AI is different from colo data centers, a number of fronts.
Yeah.
One of them is in latency. I think NVIDIA's CEO, Jensen, said it best recently. He said, AI doesn't care where it goes to school.
Yeah.
Well, the school should
Right.
be where it's cost effective, where
Right.
it's sustainable, that sort
Right.
of stuff. But thinking about an AI factory, say it's in a location, we're building a 100 megawatt AI factory in Tasmania, which is part of Australia, where it's green hydropower. So we ingest data through fiber at the speed of light that comes from anywhere in the world. For example, latency to London and back is 200 milliseconds, so 20% of 1 second. That comes into the AI factory. It's converted into digital ones and zeros, and it does its processing in the big NVIDIA clusters, and it's converted back into photons, and it gets sent across all the glass subsea cables that are across the world, and there you go. What I think most folk don't realize is that, you and I interacting with ChatGPT, for example, that can be multi-seconds of latency. Right. If you ask ChatGPT a question, you're not expecting real time to see the answer.
Right.
So I think the human perception for when something is real time or not real time is about 600 milliseconds, thereabouts. So if we think about the world's fiber network, anywhere in the world is reachable within 600 milliseconds. So it does then become, well, where do you build these factories? You should build them in the best economic region. You should build them with the best economic design, because really it is an economics game. The lowest cost token wins. And that's why I think we're now seeing this new breed of AI factory, as opposed to what we just talked about, which is the old co-location model, which is, yes, you had to be, where I'm from, you'd be having a data center in Sydney, in Melbourne, in Brisbane.
Yeah.
You pay sky-high rates for real estate, and you've got all these overheads. Well, actually, it's better to put it out near a power station or out near a hydro dam, because actually that's more cost-effective and sustainable.
So, Wyman, I want to ask you about what the implications of this conversation about inference and training are for markets like Singapore and for Malaysia. Now, Singapore had this moratorium. They built so many data centers that AI usage was going way up. So they banned it in 2019, I think it was, right? The moratorium on data center construction. They've lifted that partly because they've seen so many data centers go up in Malaysia, I think. And they're a little kiasu about that. But the new rules are quite restrictive in Singapore. There are a lot of requirements for you have to build a very green, environmentally friendly data center. And right now, correct me if my data is wrong on this, but as I understand it, Singapore's got a data center capacity of, it's about 10% of total energy consumption for Singapore. So it would be I don't know how many megawatts that is, but
I think it's like 250.
200, something like that, something like that. And they don't want it to go up more than, what is it? They don't want it to go very much further before they want to cap it, right? Because the issue for Singapore is power, right? Singapore's data centers are not powered by solar energy plants or nuclear plants. They're powered by gas, most of which I guess it just comes over on a cargo ship, but a big chunk of which is piped across from Malaysia, right? So Malaysia has emerged as this kind of data center hinterland for Singapore and for other areas as well. But what does this debate about inference and latency mean for Malaysia? I wrote a couple of issues ago in Fortune a piece that sort of suggested that Malaysia was on track to potentially either draw even to or even overtake Northern Virginia as the world's largest data center corridor. Is that realistic for Malaysia, or am I being overhyping this story?
I think Singapore, if not mistaken, is about 1.3 gigawatts. Yeah,
gigawatts right now.
Roughly,
yeah.
and then
and doesn't want to go beyond 1.4.
Yeah, I mean the new guidelines coming out from the new CFA, which is the release of more capacity in Singapore, is going to be about 200. I think that's roughly what is going to be announced, and that part will be tightly controlled as we move forward, right?
Right.
But I think the implications, as what you say, is also quite interesting, because is really what you want for a city-state like Singapore, right?
Right.
Because the key thing is that because everything is limited, I mean, your land is limited, your water is limited, your power is limited, right?
Right.
So do you really, as a city-state, require for example, the training stuff that we spoke about earlier, right? I think the current thinking, I mean, I can't speak for the government, is that is probably not the most ideal thing that you want for the growth of the economy here, right? But the things like when you talk about inference, which is related to much more latency sensitive, right, is something that you want to be located within your country, right? So for example, let's say things that is very latency specific, for example, let's say autonomous cars. I mean, that means a lot whether it's like, between 1 millisecond or 100 milliseconds. It makes a lot of difference. And those are the stuff that you want and the applications to evolve in locally. So I think there's a difference. And then if you look at it then from Singapore versus Johor, and if you will, also Batam, that's the other place that has been advocated quite closely.
Right.
There's actually a synergies across the three areas. I think right now we coin it as Singapore Plus or Sijori, whatever you may call it, right? But essentially, that triangle creates a sort of ecosystem, right, whereby the certain economic activities and things that you want to be located here serves the local purpose, right? And stuff that you can want to leverage off the better resources elsewhere, you could sort of put it a little bit off center. So I think that is evolving quite quickly. Of course, there's always the issue of like, I mean, this is not Hong Kong and Shenzhen. That's the other thing that we always talk about, right? This is 3 different sovereign countries, which is something that we also have to think about, data sovereignty, blah, 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 kind of things like that. So I think it's evolving towards that, and I think that seems to be a natural course of, as we evolve, it makes sense for all of us, because we just can't have more stuff here.
But it's not just data sovereignty. It's also the question of building the grid, right? Because I mean, Singapore is not going to solve its energy requirement problem on its own. It's going to have to depend largely on Malaysia and maybe even to an extent on Thailand or something like that. Right?
Yes, and I mean,
you've got to be moving volts across the border, not just bits.
I mean, I probably can't say too much. I'm on NDA with the government because of the next CFA, but it's heavily related to they're tying the green energy to essentially the CFA. So challenging the industry to come up with innovative ideas to essentially make our industry a lot more green than what it is today.
So one of the things that's exciting about this exploding demand from data centers is that it creates the scale necessary to do really breakthrough things in renewables, like you're doing with solar. It creates you can raise the capital for that. And that may have spin-off benefits for the larger economy, not only in terms of jobs, not only but also in terms of just greener energy for the whole country or region. But I'm curious, and maybe Rangu, this is a question for you. One of the things we haven't discussed is nuclear, and in the U.S., the big tech giants are all in varying degrees starting to look at nuclear power to the extent that we're even reopening 3 Mile Island, which is quite a thing in the United States for people who remember how traumatic that was to the national psyche. So is there a nuclear option for Asia? Is that a viable thing to support? Is it a renewable option for supporting data center growth?
I think so, absolutely. I think if you look at from our overall power needs for AI over the next 5-10 years, we can kind of break it up in 3 kind of phases: near term, mid-term, long-term.
Yeah.
You look at near term, you can't build new power plants overnight. So data center companies, go closer to the source of power, like Johor, maybe Wisconsin in the US, and places like this, they can find. So that's where most of us are trying to.
Nuclear power plants take about how many years to get up and running?
Sorry?
A nuclear power plant would take
nuclear power about 5-7 years plus.
5-7 years.
So if you look at, near term, it's not about nuclear, it's about going wherever the power is now.
Right.
The kind of midterm is more about energy transition. What do we do with solar? What do we do with solar with battery storage?
Right.
How can we use things like natural gas, which is lower emission than traditional fuels, that can help you in energy transition and use natural gas for large-scale AI usage. Now you look at long-term, where that's when nuclear becomes a very important option. If you look at 8-10 years plus, It is about nuclear is one of the options that are going to become very compelling.
Yeah.
And we have to start thinking now that we want to have gigawatts of nuclear if we need in 10 years,
Yeah.
in addition to the solar and other renewable energy that the world is working on. So nuclear is going to become an important option in the long run. Near term, of course, you have 3 Mile Island, or that still would take time. But what happened in Pennsylvania, there was another nuclear power plant, running nuclear power plant,
Right.
that one of the tech companies bought out the power directly from the nuclear plant to serve their data center, which they're building around there. So those kind of things are happening already, going closer to the source of where power is now.
Tim, how do you see that? I mean, you're focused very much on efficiency, but can efficiencies move the needle enough that we don't have to resort to the nuclear option?
I think we need to do the best we can and always be efficient. I think that the rising wave of demand for AI will outstrip efficiency gains. However, if we can do things like cut material amounts of energy from the stack as it is today, instead of needing 11 gigawatts, maybe we need 7. That's a big saving. So I think that's the first part. I think the second part, and this is something that I think YTL's doing very cleverly in Malaysia as well, is that AI factories can be base loads to support renewable development. So in Tasmania, where we are building our first 90 megawatts and then subsequently going to build additional AI factory capabilities, we think about this as, well, if we come into the region and we need to buy power, we can buy power from new renewable projects, and in turn, we support financially those renewable projects. So whether it's a wind farm or a solar farm, an AI factory can be like a new smelter. It's producing, like a smelter used to produce a widget, produces steel. An AI factory produces tokens. They're both energy-intensive factories. And as energy-intensive factories, they economically support these new baseloads. So I think that AI can be a real, it's obviously, I think we all agree it's probably a force for good. I think we all agree on that. But as a medium to support more renewable development, I think that is an idea that we're backing, and I think others should start to look at that too. I think YTL's doing the same.
Super interesting conversation. That, I'm afraid, has to be the last word, but I feel like we just barely scratched the surface of what is a fascinating subject. Please join me in thanking our power panel for sharing their insights with us. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.